Hi there.
Hi there. This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us at WZRD Jeff Harnar, the vocalist. How are you today, Jeff?
I'm terrific. It's great to be here. Thank you.
You're not only a vocalist, you're a wonderful performer, cabaret artist. Tell us uh, everything that you do. And it has spanned a 40-year career.
Well, actually, yes, I've been working with my music director for 41 years, Alex Rybeck, who did the orchestrations, arrangements, and plays with me on the album, the Sammy Khan, the second time around, and the album we released last year, which was the Cy Coleman collection called A Collective Sigh. So yes, but I've actually been singing since I was 10. I mean, I've had all my union cards since I was 10. At that time I was living in the Chicago suburbs, and there was a talent agent there who saw me in a community theater production of The Music Man. So I've been working at it a long time, many years as a boy soprano and now as a baritone.
How did the change come about from soprano to baritone?
It came about abruptly. Yeah, it's very interesting. My tax returns show income, and then all of a sudden there are several years without income. And they asked me once what happened during those years, and I said my voice changed. So yeah, but I'm very grateful to have met Alex Rybeck all those years ago. It's very rare to have that kind of continuity with a single musical partner like that.
Are you able to tell us how your voice changed? Did you purposely make the change or did it change by itself?
Oh no, it's called puberty. It was
Oh,
it,
that young and that young. Oh, yeah. Tell us a little
yes.
bit about the different periods of your career.
Well, I did a lot of TV jingles, and that's really what the work was from about 10 till I was, I guess, 12 or 13. And then I went to a wonderful high school in the Chicago suburbs called New Trier High School, New Trier East at that time, and had wonderful training. I'm still in touch with one of the wonderful teachers from there. And then I went off to college. I went to SMU in Dallas, Texas, then transferred to NYU. And NYU gave me a great entree into New York City. And it was during that time that I met Alex Rybeck, who I've been working with. Uh, and then my cabaret career began in 1983 was when we did our very first performance together. And, there were several years in there of just trying to figure it out. And well, I'm still trying to figure it out. I think that's a great place to be in life is to be learning. But Alex and I got very lucky around 1988 when the New York Times reviewed us for the first time. And by 1989, I was no longer waiting tables, and I was able to just make my living performing. Supplemented a lot by doing my show on cruise ships, which was a very lucrative way to support myself. And then we've just been recording, and I've also branched off now into directing. I direct other people doing their cabaret acts, and I find that very fulfilling. It just had an opening night 2 nights ago with a wonderful singer named Renee Katz doing an Irving Berlin show with the wonderful Christopher Marlowe as her music director. It's wonderful. It's a very sweet season in my life. I'm doing what I love to do with people that I love working with, and I get to travel to places that I love. I'll be coming to Chicago in November as part of the Paris Chicago Cabaret Connexion. I'll be in a concert there. And yeah, and I'm about to be doing the show at Birdland on Monday, October 7th. So that's our next big date with the Sammy Khan album.
How did you get the opportunity for a cabaret? What happened?
Well, actually, I hate to reveal the secret, but anyone can do a cabaret act. It's one of the friendliest art forms as far, for an entree. There are clubs, we call them showcase rooms where you can go in and break in, and that's what Alex and I started doing 41 years ago. Rooms that are no longer here, like Mr. Sam's and Broadway Baby and 88's, and rooms that are still here, like Don't Tell Mama. And then the show that we did that was a breakthrough for us was a tribute to Betty Comden and Adolph Green that we called Carried Away, and that was in 1989. And we moved from doing one night a week for 10 weeks to doing 7 shows a week for 5 weeks. It was a huge seismic change in our lives, and that was in 1989. And then we went to the Algonquin Hotel's Oak Room, did several engagements there, and we were very lucky. That was a um, very supportive time where newspapers actually reviewed Cabaret, like the New York Times, the Daily News, Chicago Tribune. Um, we were very lucky. We got a lot of wonderful press that allowed me to forge the career that I'm having.
Liza Minnelli spoke about you too. What did she say and how did that come about?
Well, again, I was very lucky. Liza started dating a dear friend of mine, Billy Stritch, who's a wonderful entertainer himself, and dear friends with Jim Caruso, who hosts the cast party every Monday night at Birdland, which is definitely something everyone should experience when they come to New York. It's a wonderful uh, informal gathering of entertainers that Jim hosts for decades now. Anyway, so Billy was dating Liza, and so by osmosis, I got to meet Liza. And 3 different times she invited me to come perform my shows in her living room for her. And that's when she gave me that lovely quote. Well, I don't know which quote you're looking at, but as far as the Sammy Kahn album goes, she came to that show at the Firebird Cafe 25 years ago, and she gave me the quote. I wish Sammy could have heard this; he would have loved it, which was wonderful. I did a show that was a tribute to mu movie music from the films her father directed. We called it Dancing in the Dark, Vincent Minnelli's Hollywood. And that's one of the shows I performed for her in her living room. And she gave me a very beautiful quote at that time. She said, Jeff Harnar performs with a joy that can only be called true style. And yes, I know it by heart. Wouldn't you? It's, she truly is the person that you see on screen. She's a very generous, loving, supportive person, and we cabaret singers were very lucky to have her in our midst when she lived in New York.
When you were young and did you have any voice lessons? How did you acquire your style?
Well, yes, I did have voice lessons. William Rush, who I hope is still alive and well in Chicago area, trained me beautifully. I went to SMU and studied with Thomas Hayward, who was a wonderful Metropolitan Opera singer, who taught me great technique as well. Came to New York City and studied with Joe Scott, who's no longer with us. Uh, but it's teachers like Sarah Louise Lazarus who really, she is someone who changed my life as far as how I sing. She really taught me the importance of the lyric. The others taught me the importance of the sound. But it really, for the kind of work that I do, which is storytelling set to music, it's about the lyric. And I have worked with great directors, Sarah Louise Lazarus, Barry Kleinborg, and Sandra Lee, Broadway star Sandra Lee, who was the original Minnie Fay in Hello Dolly and Tiger Lily opposite Mary Martin and Peter Pan. I just had dinner with Sandra last night. She's 95 years old and still going strong, so it's extraordinary.
I guess your technique had to be honed in the beginning, at least honing the voice, and then you were able to concentrate on the lyric.
Yes, but I wish if I could go back and tell my younger self something. I wish I had understood the importance of the lyric. It really, I have seen many singers, and I'll mention Julie Wilson as one, though I think she had a remarkable singing voice. But it, people didn't think of her as a singer. She was a singing actress, and she was a great teacher in my life. She really showed me the value of the lyric.
What about the pronunciation and pronouncing a word, rounding it out at the end, and starting it gently at the beginning. Did you learn any of that? How to uh, form and shape the words?
Well, I'm learning that from you right now, apparently. Um, you know, yes, I guess in singing technique, you learn how to sing notes and vowel sounds with the words. Um, what I aspire to is to have the transition between my speaking and my singing as seamless as possible. I hope that those voices are one and the same, and that my singing has the effect of speech. That's really, yes, I I'm grateful for the singing voice, the actual sound that I have, the timbre that I have. But I'm very grateful that it's very close to my speaking voice. So I really hope that when listeners hear me singing, they feel like I'm communicating right into their ears, as I would to a significant someone. Um, the intention of the song, first and foremost.
What helped you gravitate toward the songs that you like?
That's the great question because that has to do with the lyric. I choose my songs lyrics first. Certainly there are songs where I love the melody. I hear the melody and I love the melody, but if I'm not a reliable, believable narrator of the words that I'm singing, then I can't sing the song. I get sent songs all the time from songwriters, and it's the first thing I look at are the words. The words have to make sense coming out of me. Am I the right person to tell that story? So yes, I look at the lyrics first, and that's why the album is Sammy Kahn's lyrics. It's why I was able. It's why I was able to do a Sondheim album. I had a Sondheim album come out 3 years ago. It's called I Know Things Now, My Life in Sondheim's Words. And it's because of the words that I was able to transcend how extremely challenging his melody lines are. I didn't sing Sondheim till I was in my 50s. I really was terrified. His music is so challenging for the vocalist. But by starting with the words, I found the stories that I wanted to tell. And then with the aid of my music director on that project, who was the great jazz virtuoso John Weber, we were able to find a musical language that allowed me to interpret those songs comfortably and authentically.
What kind of musical language are we talking about to help you absorb those lyrics, that language?
Well, I would challenge, ask, invite anyone to listen to our Sondheim album, and you will hear that even though the majority of the songs are taken from Broadway musicals, they don't sound anything like the way they were birthed on the Broadway stage. They come out in a jazz idiom. John and this is Sondheim actually got to hear 8 of those arrangements on that album, and he loved them. He said he loved the changes that John had made, and he wished there were more. So they're definitely to a jazz setting. So they come out much differently than they did as characters in a Broadway musical story.
I guess you mean that it came out in jazz language instead of Broadway language.
They do. They come out in a jazz language instead of Broadway language, but they also come out in my language. It's the way that I would speak these words, sing these words. It's the same with the Sammy Kahn. We have a lot of fun. For instance, one of the songs on the Sammy Kahn album is Be My Love, which when I first heard it, it was Mario Lanza, with a booming tenor voice. And I would have guessed, I was surprised Sammy Kahn wrote that song. I would have guessed it was written in 1850 for some operetta, but it was written in 1950. So I thought, well, can we make the song sound more like a song from the 1950s? So you will hear we do kind of a doo-wop version, and I use my falsetto to do my best Frankie Valli. But we reinvent the song the way I imagined it. So it's different from the way anyone else would. And that's what I think most singers do. Certainly the way I sing Be My Love is not like Frank Sinatra or Dean Martin or Mario Alonso would have sung it. It's my own spin on it.
Did you have a coach to help you when you sang the Sondheim songs?
Well, I worked with Sandra Lee as my director and John Weber as my music director, and we cocooned ourselves, John and I first and foremost, really figuring out the arrangements. And then Sandra came in and helped us assemble that show. What's unique about the Sondheim project is I don't talk during the show. At the very beginning, I say, uh, the words and music are by Stephen Sondheim, but the story is mine. And from that moment on, every word out of my mouth is Stephen Sondheim's. But they are as autobiographical as anything I could have written, and of course, much better than anything I could have written. So if you listen to that album, you get an insight into the way my heart works, the way I fall in and out of love, the way I handle fear, um, and the way I feel fulfillment in life. It's all his words are all the lyricists that I choose, Cole Porter, Sammy Kahn, Comden and Green, they all give me wonderful ammunition to express the emotional climate of my heart.
It seemed as if in that Sondheim project, you directed how the songs would be arranged so that they would reflect your life. Is that how you got involved and wanted to direct?
Yes, it's one of the things that I bring to every directing project. I always meet with an artist to be sure that I'm the right fit. Because yes, I want to know that the lyrics are important in the project that I'm working on. And you can ask the artists that I work with, they will tell you, um, there's a singer named Sally Mae. She always is saying, make a meal out of the lyrics. That they are delicious. So to your point, I love the consonants, I love the vowels, I love, I love them all. There's nothing arbitrary about the language a lyricist uses. They are, that's how I find my phrasing when I sing, is by looking at the punctuation of how a song is written, not at how the melodic phrase may end, because the lyric may actually continue through to the next line. And you may find out that the period or the conjunction is in the next musical phrase. It's wonderful. I love all of that.
I had a voice professor at Wilbur Wright College, Richard Gersten, and he taught me how to sing uh, the national anthem. And he mentioned how don't breathe when you haven't finished the sentence yet. So make sure you finish the sentence before uh, using the breath.
That's exactly right. I mean, you can certainly catch a breath before the period. Um, in those moments of discovering what an adjective might be that you're singing. Um, and when lyrics repeat, you have to find different ways so that they always sound like a new idea. But yeah, those are the challenges. Boy, the national anthem, that's the hardest song on the planet.
It's a lot of fun, and I love singing it.
That's like 2.5 octaves, isn't it? It's a very challenging song. You have to start very low. That's the secret.
Yes, and my professor, he was wonderful. He sounded like a Robert Goulet, and he taught me
Oh,
breath, breath control the posture, musicianship, singing in the uh, face,
the
singing in
mask.
the
Mask.
mask. Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, those are all the tools.
Mhm.
Robert Goulet was in the first Broadway show I ever saw. I was 9 years old. in 1969, and I saw him in the musical The Happy Time with the score by Kander and Ebb, and I loved him. I loved that show. It's what hooked me. There were children in that show in the chorus, and I just wanted to be one of them. I didn't know you could do that for a job. But
How did you find out
he
to
was
do
an
it?
extraordinary entertainer, Robert Goulet.
How did you find out that the children could get a job on the choir and in the chorus?
Well, by seeing that show, my parents were very smart. We were living in the suburbs of New York, and we were about to move to Chicago. And my parents knew that I loved cast albums, and they said, you should look at the New York Times, see what shows are running, and listen to the cast albums. But go to the library and get the cast albums, and you pick. And I listened to The Happy Time. It was between Steve and Edie and Golden Rainbow, or Robert Goulet and The Happy Time, and I could hear the children's chorus. I could hear them singing, but when I saw them on stage, and it was choreographed by a Gower champion, so they were doing extraordinarily wonderful, thrilling things on the stage. And that's why when we moved to Chicago, my mom saw they were doing The Music Man, and that had a young boy, a lead for a young boy, and I got that part, and that's how I got my talent agent in Chicago, and that's how things began there.
How long had you been singing, professionally singing with uh, classes and teachers before you got that role?
What I had not studied. No, that was just listening to a cast album and going in and singing. No, I did not have a voice teacher. So that no one's ever asked that before, but that really was the we hadn't even really had music class that I remember, like choral singing yet, but I had, there was a wonderful director, Eileen Bovers, who directed that show. Her daughter went on to be a Broadway star, Jessica Bovers. Um, yeah, Bovers. I was very lucky. I was very lucky. I met great teachers all along. I can't remember the name of the music director from that show, but he was very patient with me and taught me how to, we didn't have microphones then. We just sang. So
So you had to learn how to project then.
I did. Yes, I did.
You must have sang at home, maybe in front of family members or friends. How did you learn to sing so that you got that role? You must have had practice.
Well, that started very young too. In my childhood, the movie Mary Poppins was new. So I got to, and I loved that music. The Sound of Music came out, when I was a child. That movie, that was transformative. I directed and starred in a production of it when I was in second grade, which is it was very charming and laughable now. But the teacher was very supportive and let me, I didn't really understand what the story was about, but I could mimic the songs the way I saw them in the movie and listening to the record. Um, yeah, so it just was in my blood. I'm one of the people that put on shows in my backyard. We had a porch that that we could hang curtains on underneath and invite people over. So yeah, I was very much, it was just in my DNA, I guess. I don't know.
Seems as if you have very supportive parents, and that was a very supportive second grade teacher too. Did you volunteer to direct that class play, or did she suggest that you do it?
No, I went up to her and said, this would be so much fun to do with everybody. Because everybody liked that movie. At least I thought they did. The Sound of Music was a big hit. My third grade teacher too, she signed my report card with "I'll see your name in lights someday." I must have been I must have been clowning around. Um, yeah, and you brought up how supportive my parents were. So when I was in Chicago and we lived, in the suburbs, one of my parents either had to drive me into the city to audition or do a job, or often they put me on a train, and my dad would pick me up downtown from work. He would take off from work. We did things that filmed at night, so my dad would stay up all night and then go to work the next day. I just marvel at that. They weren't stage parents. They didn't push me, but if I wanted to do it, they would make it happen. in that way. They were very, very supportive. And my dad, was a jack of all trades. So my first composite, headshots and all that, he cut my hair and took the pictures and printed the printed them for me. They were very, very involved. And my dad would be in the shows. That's the amazing thing. When I did The Music Man, Oliver, and The King and I, my dad was in the chorus of all those shows, so that he could drive me to and from the rehearsals. That's love. That really is love. I took it for granted at the time, but oh my gosh, when we were doing Oliver, I was the Artful Dodger, and at one performance, at the climactic scene where Bill Sikes is up on London Bridge and the constable pulls out his gun to shoot him, the gun didn't go off, and my dad was a constable, and he went bang, and the audience just laughed and laughed and laughed. And on the way home, I was just like, Dad, really? Did you have to be the one to say bang? And he said, the play wouldn't have ended if I didn't do that. So
Uh,
he was a good sport.
well, did he learn to sing since he was in the chorus? Were your parents
No,
at all?
no, they used to say, Bob, just mouth the words. No, we appreciate you being up there. Just mouth the words. But in The Music Man, he was the guy who went, look, what do you talk? What do you talk? What do you talk? Where do you get it? What do you talk? So he did have that part, speaking part.
Well, the musical, your music seems to be hereditary in some way. Do you know if you had ancestors that were musical?
Not at all, except that my mother's father, my grandfather, was musical in that he played the ukulele and he played the organ and he liked to sing, but not professionally. But I will say that my dad was a public relations man, and I grew up understanding the value of graphic design and how I put myself forward uh, visually. So I love that part of creating a show. I love coming up with the logo. I love doing photo shoots. I love trying to come up with clever ways to market. And that definitely was something he imbued in me.
Yes. It seemed as if you were involved in you were interested in all aspects of the production, and you learned some of it and contributed when you could.
Yes, I'm always learning. And we have to keep learning because the technology keeps changing. My goodness, we didn't have social media when I started out. And years ago, not so many years ago, I had to make postcards, flyers, and mail them, handwrite them and mail them to people. And now I can do that with Facebook and Instagram. And it's there's a much different way to reach an audience. I wish the newspaper still reviewed Cabaret. When the New York Times stopped doing that, there was a wonderful critic named Stephen Holden who did that for decades, was very supportive of my career. That really has hurt, just with people knowing where we are.
Are you in London now? You have a couple of shows in London.
I just came back that was 2 weekends ago. We did
Oh,
we did two Friday and Saturday night in London and had a ball, a wonderful room called the Pheasantry. And it gets that name, the Pheasantry, because that's what it was 150 years ago. It was the place where they raised the pheasants for the royal family to eat. It's a beautiful building, and it has in the basement is a wonderful, wonderful music venue.
when you are singing, do you do you reflect on just what's in front of you, or do you keep on in uh, do new ideas come to you sometimes when you are singing? Or
Well, I that's a great question. I liken performing in cabaret. I liken it to being in a scene and the audience is my scene partner. So I can only rehearse a certain amount of it, and the rest is informed by the audience that's there. So it matters very much who's in the room. It definitely changes how certain lyrics come across. If I land on a face that I know, or I see a couple holding hands during a romantic song, or someone weeping, uh, hopefully for a sad song, not just in general. Um, that definitely transforms the experience for me. But yes, in the preparation of personalizing a song and creating arrangements, I I I I know the backstory of each song that I'm singing. I know where I'm singing it. I know why I'm singing it. I know who I'm singing it to, if it's to a certain someone. Uh, there's a wonderful life tool that I love. Before I speak, I am told to remind myself, does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said right now? And I think when I'm performing a song, the answer has to be yes to all three of those questions. This song is something I need to sing. It needs to be sung by me, and it needs to be sung right now. That's how important each song is to me. They express some life moment, some color on the human emotional rainbow that needs to be expressed. And so that there is a lot of preparation, a lot of loading up that I do uh, in creating the arrangements and getting ready to perform. But then it all becomes something new and fresh with each audience that I have.
Well, it seems as if when you're doing that research and preparing the song, it's like directing again. How did you, what was your first directing job and how did you get it?
Well, I guess the very first was a singer named Anna Bergman, who's a wonderful classically trained singer who also does cabaret. And she's the one who asked me, and that was in 2011. So I haven't been directing all that long. But she's the first one who thought I would be uniquely useful to her, that she had had experience with people who are very hard, harsh, punitive directors, and I'm not that. Being a performer myself, I know that I have to be able to hear what someone is. I have to be able to hear a correction in order to make a correction. And so it's not just the what I'm hearing, it's the how I hear it. So I try to be as nurturing as a director as I need from a director in order for me to hear. That's what Sarah Louise Lazarus did for me back in 1985 when I took her class. She's still teaching. If anyone's out there who wants to study with a wonderful, wonderful singing coach and director, Sarah Louise Lazarus and Alex Rybeck do workshops all the time. And she was really the one who taught me the importance of the lyric, but she was able to say it to me in a way that I heard for the first time. She
How did you
really
say it?
Well, I sang a song. So I was at that time, I guess, I don't know, 25 years old. But I really did look much younger than 25. Um, and I sang a song called If I Love Again that I'd heard Barbara Streisand sing beautifully. So it's a beautiful song. I thought I should sing it. And when I finished, she said, "That's beautiful. You sang that beautifully, but how dare you? How dare you sing about ever loving again when you look like you're 15? You look like you're in your teens." Um, it was a very illuminating way for me to realize that I have to be the right fit for the words that I'm singing. I had never really thought that. I'd gotten lucky, but in choosing a song like If I Love Again, I, totally missed the mark because I wasn't the right person. So she was the one that taught me if you pick the right lyric for who you are, and you make it authentically your own, it becomes definitively your own. It may not be the definitive version. Maybe Frank Sinatra or Judy Garland sang it better, but it's definitively my expression of that lyric. And that's the bar that I'm trying to reach is my own bar, my own. If I can swim in my own lane and glance to the left and right to hear how wonderful Ella Fitzgerald is, or how wonderful Rosemary Clooney is, or Tony Bennett, but that won't serve me. What serves me is swimming in my own lane and just making those lyrics come out of me. However, I need to do it musically with my own music director and arranger, and however I need to phrase it so that it's the way that I would speak it. And she also taught me the importance of monologuing a song. I always start speaking the lyric as a monologue, looking for where the punctuation is, looking for what the important sentences are. That's how I know where I need the song, the arrangement to soar, as if it's, the important line in a song.
How long does it take you to prepare for a song? Are some songs easier, or are all of them do you, is there any song that was hard to prepare for?
Just take the Stephen Sondheim album and point anywhere. Those are all hard. However, I will say this about his lyrics. They make so much sense. He spoils you for most every other lyricist because they're so intelligent and specific. He's so specific. There are some lyricists who the rhymes are just a little bit more poetic. And the I nothing against Carolyn Lee, but when I'm singing the song When in Rome, um, they're kind of interchangeable because the story doesn't track. The intention of the story is there for all the lyrics, but if I write happily, best wishes from Napoli, if I write bitterly from Italy, those lines are interchangeable. Whereas Stephen Sondheim, they're in the exact place they need to be, uh, to track the story. And so in that way, they're easy. But then marrying the lyric to the melody uh, is always challenging with him. His melodies are ambitious, and they are challenging.
Did you ever meet him and talk with
Yes.
Stephen Sondheim?
Yes, I was very lucky he came to see a show that I did with KT Sullivan of his music. It was terrifying. It was, a cabaret room. We had 100 people in that audience and Stephen Sondheim. And I was the one who he arranged his ticket through. So, we began emailing together. His assistant sent me an email that I didn't know was his assistant. I just got an email that says the boss wants to see the show. And I wrote back, I'll bite. Who's the boss? And he wrote back, Stephen Sondheim. And I was just, flabbergasted. So Stephen Sondheim wrote to me and said, I would like to be the last one into the room and sit in the furthest seat in the back because I don't want anyone watching me watching you. I should sneak in. And he said, You're welcome to come up to me after the show, but please don't announce that I'm there. Don't, thank me. And that's what happened is, he was the last one to come down just as the house lights went down. And it was terrifying. It was just terrifying. We were recording that performance with the intention that maybe we could do a live recording, but there isn't a track we could use from that because my breathing was so shallow. I couldn't drop my breath all the way down to my diaphragm because I was so afraid. But he was very kind. And that's when he said, I loved the changes. I wish there were more. And he became an email pen pal for me. I would send him, we taped one of those shows for PBS, and he asked to have the tape, and I sent it to him, and he wrote back, congratulations. And when we recorded my Sondheim album, I asked him if I could send him the tracks as we did them, and he was very, very nurturing, which, as you know, when he passed, everyone came out with the typewritten notes. I mean, that he just really mentored many artists. And I have 5 of those notes. I treasure them. And an interesting thing about the emails that I got from Sondheim is his husband's name is Jeff, and my name is Jeff. So there were 3 occasions where I got emails that were intended for the other Jeff. So I had to write back and say, there are another 100 Jeffs. Or, and he would write back, "Oi," or "Please don't tell anyone. Please don't share what was in this." He was very kind. And his assistant, Stephen Clark, was very kind to me. And he invited me over after Sondheim had passed and gave me a tour of the house, and he gave me a few mementos, little artifacts to to keep. And so I feel very blessed that I had that little piece on his radar of he was aware of what we were doing and he endorsed it, which was lovely.
When you just mentioned that you were uh, uh, tense that just not your usual self when Stephen Sondheim was there and you were performing. You usually don't have any stage fright, but how were you able to not have a stage fright from the beginning? It seems as if stage fright does not affect you.
Um, I don't get stage fright unless it's a brand new show and there's a lot, that just, but mostly I'm excited. Mostly it's just the adrenaline and, it's a healthy kind of yeah, excitement. That was terrible. And I wasn't expecting it. I really honestly thought because Comden and Green came and saw our Comden and Green show, when I was singing Burton Lane music, Burton Lane came. I have had the gift of many of these songwriters. Julie Stein came to hear our show. I've had the gift of many of these great composers coming, Jerry Herman, and I really thought with Stephen Sondheim coming, I was so excited for him to hear how we were using the material. I just couldn't wait for him to hear what we were doing. But then as soon as they said, "Yep, he's here," I was just I couldn't get a full breath. And it was very, very hard to get into the songs and not be aware that Stephen Sondheim is there or that this audience knows that Stephen Sondheim is there. It was just that I guess they call them intrusive thoughts. Those intrusive thoughts came in a lot. And just, to to add to the terror, the very first song was Our Time. The show was called Our Time. And I had the very first line was, something is stirring deep. And my mic wasn't on. And I could see the sound man leap across to hit the soundboard. But, so for the first moment, the sound wasn't on. And that didn't help. That added to the not being in the moment musically.
Well, technical difficulties happen all the time. Was there any
They
other technical
they
difficulty
do.
that's very
I
memorable?
love I love technical difficulties because they give you they give you an opportunity to be perfectly imperfect. It's like the Japanese pottery that it's the imperfections that make it priceless. I think it's kintsugi, I think it's called. Is that right? That's the broken pottery they put back together with gold. So it actually is more valuable because of the imperfections. I love that. It gives you, usually it can be fun, but but that on the first line of the first song of the first time Sondheim was there, it was terrifying. Yeah, it was nerve-rattling.
No. Well, Jeff Harner, thank you so much for joining us on WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And this is your album. Jeff Harner sings Sammy Khan the second time around. You have been so much wonderful insight. Thank you so much. And if our listeners want to contact you for more information, where should they go?
They should go to my website, jeffharnar.com, and Harnar is spelled with two A's, Harnar, where it says contact. Those messages come right to me directly. So I love when people let me know that they're coming to the show so I can look for them afterwards. And I love when people write that they've been listening to the album. I really appreciate all the airtime you have given the album. I get those listings, and it makes me very happy that the Chicago area is hearing my music. That, as you can imagine, having gone to grade school and high school there, it's very meaningful.
Thank you so much, Jeff Harner.
My pleasure. Thank you.